Resident Evil 9 hides a surprising number of mysteries and hidden details that most players will never notice. Some of them are clearly intentional and others raise questions the game never fully answers, at least not anywhere I could find. Oh yeah, this right now is your spoiler warning. If you haven't played it and you care about spoilers, you better leave now. So, let's start out with the unsolved mysteries. Number 1. Who killed Jeff Gray? At the start of the clinic, you come across this researcher lying on the floor, dying from a wound to his neck. It almost looks like his throat was slit.
Stay away from that!
Are you alright?
Get away!
No, hold on.
The player takes the West Wing keycard from his body, and by inspecting the keycard, we learn his name is Jeff Gray. Besides giving the player a key item, this moment also seems designed to misdirect the player's thoughts about Emily at first. As Jeff Gray is dying, he angrily shouts, "Stay away from her!" And anyone who's played like Resident Evil 7 will probably feel a bit uneasy hearing that line. The scene almost tries to frame Emily as if she might be dangerous, kind of like Evelyn. But that still leaves the real question. Who actually killed Jeff Gray? I think we can rule out another zombie. Some zombies in the game do wield knives, and zombies can stab you in the neck during certain death animations, but those attacks are brutal and frantic. They stab like repeatedly, and then when they kill you, they'll like begin immediately eating your body. And clearly that didn't happen here. He never turns into a zombie, so he's not infected. Emily obviously didn't kill him either. There is a hole in the ceiling in the room where like the girl monster must have entered or escaped at some point, but that still wouldn't explain like a clean throat wound like this. If anything, the girl monster, she would have simply just bit his head off like she does with the other victims. The only other suspect would be Victor Gideon, but that doesn't quite add up either because he's shown infecting people using a dart gun. That seems to be like his method. I mean, he doesn't seem like the kind of guy that goes around with a knife killing people this way. I don't know. Something about that just doesn't seem very Victor Gideon-like to me. And there's also the timing, because just before the player reaches this room, Gideon has just appeared in a cutscene, and in the cutscene he comes from the opposite direction of this area. So for him to have killed Jeff Gray, he would have had to slit his throat, somehow circle around the entire hospital, and then appear from the other side moments later. So that leaves us with this mystery. Jeff's throat was clearly cut by someone, but the game never tells us who. The next mystery is what I call the Haunted Cafe. Inside the ruined RPD, near the far BSAA crate that you can unlock, there's a small cafe you can enter. And written on the wall inside the kitchen is this strange message. Can you hear it too? Now what's interesting about this is what happens if you actually stop and listen. You begin to hear strange movement like foley noises. It sounds like there's metal moving and like movement up above you and behind the walls. And then suddenly the horror ambience track kicks in and it's really unsettling. Here, take a listen. And to me, it really made me feel like the cafe was almost haunted or something. What's really clever about this from a design perspective is that the game is making you do exactly what the graffiti tells you to do. Stop and listen. And when you do, the audio changes. The strange environmental sounds become noticeable and the atmosphere suddenly becomes much more ominous. And that's just like classic psychological horror right there. And the mystery of this area is who wrote this on the wall? What exactly were they hearing? And what exactly are you hearing now? And it is possible that the music trigger is simply tied to entering an indoor space, like there could be a global flag that activates the horror ambience whenever the player moves from outside to inside a building. But the additional falling noises, the sounds that feel like something is moving above you or inside the walls, I don't know, that feels really deliberate. And even if the audio system works technically this way, the design still achieves the same effect. The cafe, well, at least to me, it suddenly felt haunted, like, I don't know, like something bad was going to happen. So whoever wrote that message on the wall, they clearly heard something before the player ever arrived too. One of the earliest keys you find in Resident Evil 9 is engraved with a cherub. It is the Cherub Key. And a cherub traditionally represents childhood, innocence, and purity, which is an interesting symbol considering how many children appear throughout the story. I mean, the orphanage is a major location in the game where Umbrella conducted experiments on children. Emily is a main character, and she is a child that is used as a test subject.
There! You're going to like and subscribe, aren't you? Well, you better subscribe, or else you're going to end up like him!
He's not moving.
That's goddamn right he's not! Now you better fucking subscribe!
Sherry Birkin is a main character in the game, and she was just a child herself during the Raccoon City incident, something she even reflects on when speaking to Leon. So this Cherub Key, it feels like it's something innocent and pure that's placed inside this evil clinic. And Resident Evil has always used this kind of contrast since the first game, like this safe, old antique type imagery tied to horrific places. But there's other strange details in the key's design. The cherub is not facing forward. It's turning its head back over its shoulder, almost like it's looking behind itself. And that pose gives the impression of looking back at something or leaving something behind. And past trauma is a major theme in this game, with both Grace and Leon dealing with their past traumas, so this detail may not be accidental. And the cherub itself is framed inside what looks to be a Baroque cameo frame. This type of oval frame is commonly used in memorial portraits and funerary art, which starts to give the image a completely different tone than a simple happy angel decoration. The teeth of the key are also unusual. Instead of normal key ridges, they seem to resemble like a Greek fret or some sort of labyrinth pattern. And interestingly, the clinic itself is laid out almost like a labyrinth, with the two main wings branching out from the central lobby. The key also has a spiral shaft, and the spiral shaft is not one solid piece. It looks like it's coming out of the upper frame, like a mutation or something erupting from the top of it. Given the subject matter of the game, the spiral could easily represent a DNA helix. It's like tying the symbol of childhood and purity to biological experimentation, which obviously is a pretty big theme in Resident Evil 9. But if you put all the elements together, the symbolism becomes pretty striking. A cherub representing childhood, a memorial frame representing death, and a spiral shaft either representing or resembling genetic mutation, you have your child, death, mutation, which is exactly what happens to Emily, as well as all the other children that were experimented on by Umbrella in the story. At the start of Leon's section in the clinic, when the nurse comes bursting through the doors, we get a nice visual callback to the classic door loading transition from the original Resident Evil.
Mr. Kennedy, we need to leave immediately.
What's going on?
Mr. Kennedy, we need to leave immediately.
What's going on?
In the ruined Raccoon City, you can find this old Umbrella billboard, but because the sign is now decayed and crumbling, the human figures on it look almost like infected zombies. Kind of funny. Next up we have Grace's trauma. From the very start of the game, it's clear that Grace is deeply traumatized by what happened to her mother. Her mom is brutally stabbed in the neck right in front of her, and moments later, hotel catches on fire, burning the building to the ground as well as the rest of her mom. And Grace believes the entire event was somehow her fault.
So it really was all my fault.
What was?
That mom was murdered and... Oh God, Emily, she turned into that...
Today, Junior?
She even really my mother.
It's time.
Which is actually a classic example of survivor's guilt, when someone survives a traumatic event but irrationally believes they caused the death of someone else. And what's interesting is that throughout the game, the environment constantly echoes the elements of that night. There are references to fire everywhere. The clinic has an unusual number of fireplaces and fire chutes in it. There's also a large amount of no smoking signs throughout the clinic, which obviously cigarettes are a pretty big fire hazard. Smoking's bad, kids. Then there's also knife imagery. Many of the enemies in the game wield knives or giant cleavers, and even the common zombies will often be wielding knives. And if Grace dies from one of these zombies, the death animation very often involves her neck being stabbed in a similar way that her mom died. On my first playthrough, when I entered the kitchen and you come across the chef with the big cleaver, I immediately thought about how Grace's mom had her neck cleaved. The meat he's chopping on that block, I mean, it's basically the same thing that happened to her mom. I talked about this dead guy earlier, Jeff Gray. He also was killed from a neck wound. You can inspect his body, and the camera gives you a nice close-up of his neck wound, which there's really no reason for it to allow you to inspect his body at all, other than to remind Grace of that night. So throughout the game, the player isn't just fighting monsters and solving puzzles. They are constantly encountering echoes of the moment that traumatized Grace. My favorite example, too, and this is the darkest one, is when you encounter this creature, the fat fuck. When he's aggroed and he's attacking you, he will repeatedly scream things like, "It's your fucking fault! It's all your fault!" And it's not immediately clear like what he means by this. Maybe at first it just seems like it's unrelated and just seems like something scary for a big monster to yell. And maybe it's just a coincidence that he's yelling something that reminds Grace of how she feels about that night that defined her. But here's where things get kinda disturbing. The clinic is running experiments on clones of Grace, and other human test subjects, so it's possible that some of the monsters in this facility were created through experiments that were connected to those clones, which raises a pretty twisted possibility here. When this creature sees Grace, he might think she is one of the children clones, and on some level he knows what happened to him. His mutation was a result of the research being done with the clones. He could have easily seen one of Grace's clones too at some point. I mean, he's patrolling an area which is really close to the glass holding cells where one of the clones, Emily, is being held. And his brain is obviously now very mutated, so it's possible he just sees Grace and he can't really tell the difference between her and one of the children clones. So he is screaming that everything is her fault, because on some twisted level, it is. If it wasn't for her genetics, if it wasn't for her which the clones were made from, then this guy might have never turned into this giant fat fuck. Which, from Grace's perspective, is exactly the guilt she's been carrying since the night her mom died.
So it really was all my fault.
All right. This has been David with Consternation Evolved. If you noticed anything, any hidden details, or if you have any theories about the mysteries I mentioned, let me know in the comments below. I do have some ideas for some other Resident Evil 9 videos. So if this video gets views and shit, I guess I can start working on those. I've been thinking about also making a Resident Evil 9 critique video, just a really long-ass video talking about the things I like and the things I really do not like. But, I don't know, I might. Anyway, thanks for watching. Peace out.